Do you pay your bills? Do you pay your bills?
Of course not. Who pays their bills?
See, that's what I've been doing wrong this whole time. I gotta learn from you, Patrick.
I can teach you so many things.
Figure this out.
How to go on strike, how to everything.
So much to learn. All right, here we go.
Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by me. Oh, thanks, me. If you also wish to bring it, go to patreon.com/acedetect. That's patreon.com/ACEDTECT.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, April 28th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Patrick Beja, DTNS contributor, independent podcaster at FrenchSpin.com, and citizen of the Republic of France.
That is an accurate description of my nationality. Thank you, Tom, for that.
Well, I feel like that's one of your titles, you know, and as a citizen of the United States, I want to recognize that citizenship. We don't often take enough pride in our citizenship status, I feel. So.
Well, actually, in France, I think it's a real problem that we have a lack of patriotism, which we could get into if this was another show. Since this is a show about tech news,
we're going to talk about a new phone. But we're also going to talk. We are going to talk about a new phone. But we're also going to talk about a community and the sort of de facto citizenship of that community, and how those citizens didn't like the way an outside organization imposed a new way of doing things on them. We're talking about modding Skyrim and Valve today on the show.
It's going to be an interesting one involving anarchy, virtual riots, discontent, and the voicing of said discontent. It's very exciting.
But first, a new phone. The Verge reports on LG's official announcement of the LG G Phone 4. G4, the phone G4. It's called the G4. Its most distinguishing feature is the option for a new leather phone back that comes in a variety of colors. LG says it takes 3 months to make each leather back and uses materials and processes similar to those used for making luxury handbags. The phone will launch on all major U.S. carriers at the end of May or early June. No pricing yet.
You know, it really is a terrible thing. I mean it. That Apple says it takes 8 hours to craft the band of the watch with the delicate interlocking of the links. And everyone's like, that's interesting, kind of, I suppose. And then LG is saying, we make luxury leather backs. And everyone goes, I really don't care.
And yeah. The G4 is an upgrade to the G3, but not a huge one. I mean, if you want to go look at the specs, go look at the specs. They're not. None of them are such a big improvement over the G3 or other phones. So what I took from the story is that we are down to hand-stitched leather backs. I don't even know if they're hand-stitched, but they are stitched as the distinguishing factor between phones.
Well, all right then. VentureBeat reports that Dropbox is rolling out a new feature that allows users to add comments directly to files stored on Dropbox. The feature is free for every level of Dropbox users and works for anyone who has a link to the file. The new feature is accessible through the web and is coming to mobile, quote-unquote, soon.
So you can collaborate. Well, you can collaborate on notes and make sure that everyone who's accessing that file can see them, as long as they're accessing the file through the web, which makes me think this is probably best when you're working with someone outside of your normal organization, right? Somebody that doesn't actually have that folder embedded on their desktop, and they maybe have questions about the file or something. I don't know.
I'm sure there is a use for it. I think the most practical use is probably for people who you want to share a document with and be able to comment, but you don't want them to create a new account on another service that you use and maybe a few of your friends use and other people don't. And here, you know that everyone pretty much is already using Dropbox, and even if they're not, they can see the thing anyway. So
all they need is a link to the file. I think that's the brilliance of it, the way Dropbox implemented it. If you want to use it, it's pretty frictionless.
Yeah, you probably should not share it with everyone. There is a concern about privacy versus ease of use, of course, but a lot of people already use things like WeTransfer and things like that to transfer files anyway. So,
FunSecurity.com reports that SendGrid has said that attackers compromised an employee's account, which was then used to steal the usernames, email addresses, and hashed passwords of customers and employee accounts. SendGrid manages email services like shipping notifications, friend requests, that kind of stuff for companies like Pinterest, Spotify, Uber, Coinbase. SendGrid suggests customers change their password, switch on multi-factor authentication, and says it's working to add more authentication methods for its two-factor security and to expedite the release of special API keys that will allow customers to use keys instead of passwords for sending email through the system.
The official Google search blog announced new Google Now cards on Android today. Google added 70 new partners, including Zipcar, Spotify, TuneIn, ABC News, E24, Runkeeper, Jawbone, OpenTable, and more. Users should update to the latest version of the Google app in order to see the new cards. So that's Android only for now.
Yeah, and people are pretty excited about cards. If you use Google Now regularly, the more of these sorts of things, the better. I wonder when we get peak Google Now cards, though. It's kind of interesting to have Spotify say, hey, it's Friday evening. Here's some great Friday evening playlists. But at a certain point, that can start to be a little pushy, useless, etc.
For sure. Hopefully you can decide which ones of those you are going to have in your ecosystem of Google Now that is designed for you. But
Google Now decides for you, Patrick. It knows you better than you know yourself.
But you can decide which cards you're going to allow or not, can't you?
Well, you can train it. Yeah, you can say, don't give me any more cards from that. You can swipe them out, stuff like that.
Right.
It still insists on trying to give me LA area sports teams in Google Now, though, as much as I tell it.
You can't decide I absolutely do not want any of this.
You can, but it doesn't always listen. I don't know. Like, I got it to stop showing me the Angels scores, but then it kept showing me the Dodgers scores, and I couldn't quite convince it to stop. It's not like a list of settings, though, because it learns. It thinks it knows.
Well, in this case, I think it might be something that is a little bit that becomes a little bit of an issue. And my Tamagotchi is really insisting on telling me that it needs attention on my watch. That is the exact kind of problem you might run into if you have too many cards with too many of your apps. So I'm wondering if this might become a problem when you have, a few, 100 potential cards vying for your attention on Google Now. We'll see.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm sure someone's going to write into me with a way that you can easily take out particular apps from this. But honestly, I'm just being silly. The more things that it can learn from, the better. And if you don't use the apps regularly, they shouldn't show up. BBC reports Google has reached an agreement with several European news publishers to cooperate on a digital news initiative. As part of the plan, Google will contribute 150 million euros to an innovation fund. Google will also work on ways to boost publishers' revenues, train journalists in digital skills, and fund research in news consumption and crowdsourcing. Google set up a similar fund with French publishers in 2013. News Corp and Springer are not part of this deal. Those are the two companies that have been most antagonistic to Google in its European operations. But this is the right step for Google. Try to help the publishers rather than get regulated and have them complaining to the European Commission, right?
It seems like, I wouldn't even say it's the right step in general for journalism, but it feels a little bit like they're buying off. They're saying, all right, we'll just give you some money and then you'll leave us alone, or you'll be a little bit more friendly. And this is a very, I would even say, uninformed opinion, but just with the experience of the fund that we have in France and that we've had for almost a couple of years now, I personally haven't seen the result of this fund. I'm not under the impression that suddenly traditional media are getting better products or better content in the French ecosystem. So maybe I'm just not seeing it. It's very possible, or maybe it's taking a little bit more time to have an effect. But some of that money, I think it was 60 million for the French fund. Some of that money has already been spent, and I don't see how it's making things better. But they're getting into legal trouble with the EU, and they're under scrutiny, let's say. So maybe that's their way of quote unquote helping.
I'll tell you how it's making things better, because the problem isn't the reporting. The way it's making things better is it's giving money to the publishers, and that's what they're really complaining about, is the fact that they're not making as much money as they used to. So Google comes along and creates a fund that they can dip into. They start to feel good about themselves again because, hey, at least we're getting some money out of Google now.
Yeah, how long is that fund going to last, though?
Not forever, but as long as it keeps them off their back for a while, it's worth Google's money. That's my guess.
I guess so, yeah. It's just all a little bit hypocritical, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's actually doing some good. We'll see. More data trickled out from Apple after announcing earnings yesterday. Reuters reports that last quarter, Apple sold more iPhones in China than in the US for the first time. And iPhone sales rose 71% to 16.8 billion in China, thanks in part to the New Year shopping season.
Yeah, so good news. It was a good earnings report all over for Apple, especially when you have Carl Icahn out there saying the company still isn't valued highly enough. That's the kind of thing you want to hear if you're Apple, I'm certain. And they've been targeting the Chinese market for a long time, so it's good news for them there as well.
For sure. I mean, it does start to look like the iPhone is there. Taking a little bit too much space maybe in their revenue, and certainly the iPad going down a little bit is, I would think, a concern, because the iPhone 6 has been doing tremendously well, but if you're resting your entire empire, and that's a huge empire, on one product, I mean, imagine the iPhone 6s ends up not being as much of a success because everyone bought an iPhone 6, and now they're thinking we're going to wait another couple of years again. It's very good now. I'm wondering if they're going to have enough to sustain that momentum.
Yeah, you could have said the same thing about the iPod. You could have said the same thing about the Mac at certain points. It's not like the iPhone is all of the revenue. It is a large chunk, and it is a part where they're growing, but they're growing in an area where they had room to grow. So what you're saying, they can kick down the can. They can kick the can down the road for a while. There's plenty of room for the iPhone to continue to grow, but is the Apple Watch going to be the thing that can help take up the slack the way the iPhone did from the iPod? That's a good question. I don't know that that's true. So eventually, you're right. They're going to have something else.
Well, I'm not worried for Apple. I don't think Apple is fine.
Don't shed any tears for Apple.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I mean, numbers-wise, I don't think they've ever had that much reliance on one product. Maybe I'm wrong. It's very possible. I often am, but. Yeah, it's and also I'm not looking at the next couple of years. Well, Apple Watch I don't think is any competition for the iPhone. I'm not sure the iPad is going to get back up there anytime soon, but we'll see.
The BBC reports on Yahoo Labs' development of a system called Body Print that uses the phone's touchscreen to recognize a body part like an ear and unlock the phone. The idea is to provide biometric authentication cheaper than a fingerprint sensor by just using the touchscreen that's there. Initial trials have been conducted with 12 participants, so this is really early days. But the system had 99.5% accuracy identifying users and 99.8% accuracy scanning ears.
So that made me feel very, very dumb, because I started ridiculing this idea in my head and having a big laugh at the idea that you would scan your ear with your phone's screen, and the ridiculousness of bringing a phone to your ear. And then I realized, bringing a phone to your ear is basically what a phone is made for. So
hold on,
maybe it's not that ridiculous. Yeah.
No, it is a really interesting development, and I think it's a side note that it's Yahoo Labs that's developing it. Good for Yahoo Labs getting some PR out there, but I love the idea of the other way besides the ear was being able to grip the phone. It would be able to distinguish your grip pattern from others, and that one had a 99-point-something% accuracy as well. So these are all good things to experiment with, and I'm curious to see if any of them make it to the market.
The interesting thing is that everyone has a different ear. Actually, it's as distinctive as fingerprints, apparently. So, and maybe the grip is as well. Those are incredible things. Anyway, maybe one day we'll be able to actually put our hand on our tablets and have it recognize it, as we did in old sci-fi movies. Financial intelligence firm Celerity published Twitter's earnings before the market closed today, causing Twitter stock to cease trading. Celerity says the numbers came from Twitter's investors site. Twitter earned 7 cents a share against expectations of 4 cents a share, but with revenue of $436 million, missing expectations of $456 million and $800,000. Monthly active users were up 18% year over year, which I think 18% year over year is pretty incredible a rise for Twitter, which we tend to see as a somewhat stagnant service now in number of users.
Yet, the stock market reaction has been negative to that number because it's not as big as what you get from Facebook. So Twitter 18% year over year is good. It's not a big increase over the previous quarter though, and Twitter has been growing slowly. They haven't been shrinking, but they haven't been growing as fast as analysts and investors would like them to grow. I don't know that they need to. As long as they are continuing to trend up and they're continuing to gather active users, that may serve Twitter better than having some skyrocketing growth that they couldn't deal with.
I still I agree on the service, but I think they've been chasing the logged off users, the not logged in users, people who go to their homepage without having an account, and there it makes sense for them to add users who aren't actual active users who would contribute to the service. I think they can go farther, but certainly the news of the revenue, in my opinion, is the one that disappointed the investors. At some point, they have to make a lot of money, and they're not there yet. I mean, it's a lot of money for me, but apparently for those investors, it's not enough.
And TechCrunch reports Cablevision has reached an agreement to sell Hulu to its Optimum online internet subscribers, or Hulu Plus, really. No word on what the price would be or what the benefit consumers would get by buying it through Cablevision instead of directly from Hulu, but it is an interesting partnership. Hulu finally getting some help from the industry that both birthed it and it is trying to kill at the same time. It looks like, according to the TechCrunch article, Cablevision would be selling this only to its internet subscribers, so it could be put into that package that they've been selling that includes an over-the-air antenna, HBO Now, etc.
Very strange tale, that of Hulu.
Time now for some news from you. Come from our subreddit at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Get in there and vote. It helps us put the show together each and every day. Patrick, I'll let you take the first one today. This one makes me laugh.
I'm very glad that you did, because it's one I am delighted to read. Atomic Space Gun sent us the news that Amazon will now rent you a goat to mow your lawn. If you live in a city where a goat provider is available, just look in the lawn care section of Amazon's home services. Goats are an eco-friendly way to keep your lawn trimmed and much quieter than lawnmower at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. The goats will also throw in free fertilizer, which they will deposit on your lawn in pellet forms. And
that's a part of the offer that you can't decline either.
Yeah, I thought they would, the goat device would come with a certain level of service, and you could pay extra for sort of downloadable additional content or service, but apparently it comes free of charge.
You just described something that is totally an analogy to so many DRM schemes, which is the goats would come with a lockbox over their rear end, and if you wanted the bonus fertilizer add-on, you'd have to pay for it to be unlocked.
It's already ready, but they're keeping it, locked away behind this payment scheme. It makes complete sense.
Amazon's gonna get your goat delivered. Go check it out. Finally, Captain Kipper sent in the PC Gamer version of the story of the rise and fall of Valve's paid modder marketplace for Skyrim. Last Thursday, if you remember, we mentioned Valve announced that modders could choose to sell mods in the Steam Workshop for Skyrim. They would keep 25% of whatever price they chose to charge. The modding community reacted negatively, at least the Skyrim modding community did, and even downvoted Valve's Gabe Newell's attempt to explain the new system on Reddit. Every response he gave was just downvoted into oblivion. Yesterday, Valve removed the payment feature from Skyrim's Workshop. Alden wrote in the official Steam Workshop blog post, "It's clear we didn't understand exactly what we were doing." And in fact, that is going to be our main discussion topic today. So yeah, Internet just killed an app store. Now, what's interesting about this, it is not the first product that Steam has let developers create and sell. It is certainly not the first modding ecosystem around a game that's out there, but it caused an extremely negative reaction. Users started a petition on change.org, for instance, to stop it. The complaints generally circulated around the idea that 25% was not good enough. So, for instance, if I sell an app on the Apple App Store, I get 70%. 25% sounded low to people. A lot of people complained that adding money to an existing modding community where all the mods had been free was bad for the community. Who do mods for love of doing mods and love of the game. They thought basically dirty money was ruining stuff. Some modders were accused of stealing code from other modders. Now, in one instance in particular, one mod needed another mod as a dependency, which is very common in the modding space, but the dependent mod, the owner of the dependent mod was mad that an owner was charging for his mod when the dependent mod was free. So again, causing this kind of divisiveness. And generally there was an idea that modders were cashing in, that free modders were seeing these paid modders as sellouts or opportunists who had not been modding and were just arriving to make a buck or two. Patrick, were you surprised at the intense negative reaction here?
This is the kind of thing that no one can predict, and it's very easy in retrospect to say, oh, well, but of course, what were they thinking? How did they think this was going to go over well? But in this case, I was surprised, not that there was a negative reaction, but certainly of its intensity. There was definitely a mob and a riot in a way that we haven't seen since, I would say, the Xbox One announcement issues. And in a sense, I feel like this is a smaller version of that. It's a Xbox One announcement problem in a teapot. For those who don't remember, the Xbox One announcement was centered around the necessity of having your device connected to the internet and the fact that your games, even if you had bought them physically, would be attached to your account and you couldn't sell them freely and things like that. And that was very poorly handled on Microsoft's part, and it was a very poorly prepared piece of communication. In this case, in retrospect, I think it's safe to say that they should have studied this question more, that they should have floated the idea first, see how the community would have reacted. They didn't, and now it's obvious that this wasn't the right move. The thing that chagrins me, if that's even a verb, is that it feels like there was something good in that ecosystem, in that potential, that we didn't get to see because of a mob mentality reaction. Basically in the same way that we experienced with the Xbox One issues. There was a potential for dealing with the the digitization of gaming software, and in its intentions, that's what Microsoft was trying to do. But because everyone reacted so poorly, we didn't get the benefits of sharing your game collection, of letting anyone play your games from your collection, even when you're connected and playing them from people from your friend list, for example. And in this case, I think what we're not going to see is the potential benefits of having an ecosystem of modding where people who put a lot of hard work into their mods get to be rewarded for them monetarily, and maybe ultimately that would be the goal, leading to better quality mods. And that's what I think the mob didn't look far enough to gaze upon the potential for having mods that are even more professionally designed, people spending a lot of time on them, and raising the quality of the entire thing.
I mean, this is not the first time there have been controversy around mods, though. Do you remember the WoW Matrix / Curse revolt of like 2009, I think, around the WoW modding?
Sure.
Where WoW Matrix was indexing a lot of mods, and the modders were upset that they weren't giving a clear path to donate. Now, there was not a mod shop at that point, but a lot of the modders on Curse were like, hey, you know what? Sometimes we get people to back us or give us PayPal donations, etc. And WoW Matrix is stealing our stuff. And again, there was a big controversy over that, and you can make all the same arguments about, you know, whatever side you're on, about, you know, short-sightedness and allowing people to make money off the mods, encourages them to make better mods, et cetera, et cetera. To me, that's an old argument, and that's an argument that you're not going to win. Valve tried, and they just got downvoted because the underlying principle here is Skyrim has a community that wants free mods. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it will always be. They don't care if you're right, Patrick. This is their community, and the way they want their community to operate is free mods. And I think the mistake Valve made, if they made a mistake, and frankly, I think it's harsh to say Valve made a mistake. They tried something and it blew up in their face. But I think you're right. I don't know if they could have known that it would. But if they did make a mistake, it was that they didn't understand this community. And maybe the way to go about it in the future would be to pull in more of the people in the community and say, what do you think is going to happen if we do this? Because there had to have been people who are very much involved in playing Skyrim and consuming mods who would have known that this was going to be the reaction. Because it wasn't just other modders saying, hey, you're charging for things that I've always done for free and I don't like it. It was players in particular saying, no, the mods have always been free. We don't want to pay for them.
And that's an interesting distinction, because you're very right. It was players who were refusing the idea. There have been more than one prominent mod developer who have said, well, you know, I wouldn't mind making money from all of that hard work that I put into this thing. And I'm not saying that there is no reason why this system shouldn't be in place. Quite the contrary. I absolutely understand that something changes when you introduce money into the system, and I understand that the players like the system the way it is now. And the value of having something that is done because of the passion rather than because of the potential monetary gain. I certainly understand this. But I would say that, first of all, it's a different affair than the one you were referencing, the one with the WoW mods, because WoW has a system where you can modify the UI. And that's a very limited scope. The mods that are being designed for games on Steam, and particularly on Skyrim, are almost like entirely new games. You have additional campaigns, you have additional missions, you have packs of textures that will upgrade the graphics of your game. There is some, and I'm not saying that the people developing WoW mods are not putting a lot of work into them, but it is significantly more difficult and time consuming and everything to develop some of those mods for Steam games. They are essentially creating additional content and almost entirely new game modes and games themselves. So in that context, I think there is room for some kind of monetary aspect. And to be completely honest,
there's not.
Well,
you make a fair argument that the modders should be able to be rewarded. You make a fair argument that there could be room, but the community very I don't know if it's unanimous, but with a majority of its voice said we don't care. We don't care if that would make better mods. We don't care if the developers should be rewarded. There are people making mods for the love of the game, and that's the way we want our modding community to operate.
That is incorrect, Tom, and I will tell you why and how.
I think it's not incorrect that they're saying it. What are you saying is incorrect?
That they're saying it. That's not what they're saying.
Okay,
they're saying part of what they're saying is this, but a lot of people are also saying if you want to monetize, we would be all for it, but make it a donation system, a voluntary donation system.
Okay, so but they're saying then I amend my statement to say they very vociferously said we don't want this system. Yes, we want a different system.
Correct.
I guess that's my point. My point isn't whether developers should be rewarded or should not, or the mods would be better or not. My point is that this community has a very definitive idea of how they want it to be run, and they didn't enjoy Valve coming in and imposing its view on it. And I think this is something that is going to happen more and more in various areas of the internet, and it may shed some light on some of the other movements we've seen on the internet, which is we have been engendering communities for more than a decade now. Some of these communities have developed very strong identities and community standards, and you really have to learn what they are before you can go in and engage with those communities, even if they're on your intellectual property. And I think down the road, it actually will modify the idea of what intellectual property actually is.
Well, yeah, certainly. If you look far enough down the road, it might get to that. But remember that this community is kind of peculiar as well. This is the PC Master Race community. This is the Reddit community, the 4chan community. They're very vociferous. And I think that if in a similar way as what happened with the Xbox One, if communication had been done properly, I think a variation of this system could have worked. I really think so. I think there was a knee-jerk reaction on the community side, and then on the company side, saying, "Oh my God, this is not working. Let's just stop everything," and maybe reassess it a little bit later. And I think ultimately, down the line, there is going to be a reintroduction of that system somehow with a donation, a voluntary donation system rather than a paid system. We'll see, but I don't think the reaction, I guess ultimately my conclusion is that I don't think the reaction that we've seen here is representative of the public's reaction to the actual system. I think it was inflated, and that the community wouldn't necessarily be against any form of compensation for mod creators.
All right, so let's move on to our pick of the day from often sunny Colorado. Jack sent us a link to the Crash Course in Intellectual Property. This is a new miniseries in the Crash Course family from the YouTube famous Green Brothers. I love the Green Brothers, John and Hank. Episode 1 of Crash Course Intellectual Property covers the basics of IP, while future episodes will focus on copyright, patents, and trademarks. It looks to be a satisfying offering, says Jack. So he's got a link to the YouTube channel, or you can just search Crash Course Intellectual Property on YouTube and check it out. But if you want to brush up on some intellectual property, John and Hank Green do a great job in explaining these topics. The other Crash Course series are excellent as well.
Oh my God, I love Crash Course so much. I discovered it, I think, a couple of months ago. I rushed to Subbable to give them my money. Subbable, which was incidentally integrated into Patreon a few months later. But they are so talented. They do things so well in a way that is native to YouTube and to its style. If you don't know Crash Course, I think I've advertised it on every podcast I've been at that time. If you don't know Crash Course, just go check it out on YouTube. It is the best that YouTube has to offer in every way.
Send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. A couple emails to get to before we are out of here. Jim has been on a team for the last 5 years that is writing the software to control the primary and secondary power systems for a new business jet, including sending the power system CAS messages to the cockpit controller. So, of course, all of this talk about being able to possibly affect the cockpit from the entertainment system perked Jim's ears up. He said, after listening to Friday's episode, I thought, okay, knowing everything there is to know about the power system, is there anything I can do from the cabin of the jet to turn on a CAS message in the cockpit? And the answer is no. Everything I would need would require me having access to the cockpit or the electrical bay, though the communication backbone of this jet is AFDX, Ethernet for airplanes. All of the wires are hardwired between the boxes, and the ports are all known to the software so that the communication controllers reject anything that is not sent from the proper place. Now, that obviously doesn't apply to every jet necessarily, but I thought it was interesting. And Jim sent a great short description of what the CAS part of ICAS is. It's just a listing of short descriptions of what is happening to the plane, and we'll include that in the show notes as well. And then Dave, a.k.a. Buckeye Fitzy, the legal geek, you hear him after the Current Geek show actually quite often. He's a segment producer over there on legal geeky issues. And Dave wrote in and said, on the upcoming Google offer to buy up patents to try and keep them out of the hands of patent trolls, having worked in the patent law business for nearly a decade, I appreciate any efforts made to enact smart reforms where Congress fails to action. However, as a realist, what Google does with the purchased patents likely comes down to a game of follow the money. He says there may be some altruistic people there, but somebody's going to say that they need to make more money than they spend on these patents or it's not worth it. He continues, thus, Rich's desire for a true Creative Commons setup for patents may be impossible, but in a best-case scenario, Google could balance their ledgers on this project by offering relatively cheap licenses to many parties to help advance innovation efforts overall. In a worst-case scenario, Google becomes the biggest of the patent trolls or just sells the right to other assertion entities down the road. But in either outcome, Google will inevitably make the money back, and that's what you need to watch to see how this project plays out long-term and whether it benefits society and the patent system at large. Dave is not wrong. I'm not going to disagree with anything Dave said here. However, there's always the chance that Google sees its return in a different way than merely bottom line money from the patents. For instance, the whole YouTube creator space, a lot of times the bug bounties, Google doesn't chalk them up as they saved us X amount of money. They chalk them up as they increased our ability to do X, Y, and Z, which made us this much more money. So I don't know. Maybe there's a creative way that Google or somebody else could come up with to say if we make a Creative Commons of patents, it actually lowers our legal costs in a knock-on effect by making fewer lawsuits out there that we have to deal with. That's one of the reasons that you have patent consortiums, for instance. So maybe some kind of like gigantic Creative Commons patent consortium could work. I don't know. I don't know patent law nearly or patent business nearly as well as Dave does, but I'm just saying there may be some creative way that Google thinks it can do something better than just selling these down the line.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
And then there could also be such a thing as unicorns. Flowers and rainbows. All right. Thank you, Patrick Beja. Appreciate it as always. You can find Patrick's other fine works at FrenchSpin.com. I had the distinct pleasure of being on the Phileas Club this weekend, and as always, enjoyed it very much, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a fun show. I always take a second and hesitate before I say fun for a show that discusses international news. But the truth is, it is fun. It's always fun. It's a good time, and you get the opinion and perception of people from all around the world. And in this case, we had Eric from Vietnam, who actually discussed the way Vietnam perceives the Vietnam War on the celebration of its 40th anniversary. So that was pretty good as well. So if you're curious about a show that discusses world events from different places in the world, then go take a listen to the Phileas Club at FrenchSpin.com.
And thank you to our patrons. We are within spitting distance. Well, you have to spit a lot, but really we're very, very close to our goal that will let us finalize our contributors of Darren Kitchen, Patrick Beja, Justin Robert Young, Veronica Belmont, and Scott Johnson. If 700 of you today just went and said, I will give you $1 a month, or I will give you $1 more per month, we'd be there. And I have no doubt that that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. We've actually already signed up Veronica and Scott to do at least 2 appearances next month, because we're more than halfway there. So thank you to everybody who has made that happen. In celebration and to kind of like push us towards the end zone, we are going to have a supercast today. If you're watching live, it'll be on diamondclub.tv. It'll be on Alpha Geek Radio at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And it will also be in the Daily Tech News Show feed if you want it that way as well. In the audio feed, we will have an official audio recording of it. So that's going to be a chance for all of the contributors and myself and Jenny and Roger to sit down and kick around some topics and let people see some various sides of us and just basically celebrate the fact that you guys have made this possible. So thank you very much. DailyTechNewsShow.com/support. We thank you for that support. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. And listen to the show live at tunein.alphageekradio.com or visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow after the Supercast with Ron Richards as our guest. Talk to you then. It's going to be Windows Build stuff.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
All right.
Excellent.
Great show.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm gonna go lie down for a little bit. Sorry, but my back is killing me.
Oh God, I'm sorry to hear that. Take a rest. Take a break.
I hope it didn't show. I was distracted.
Not at all.
Distracted the whole show.
I hope it didn't show. I don't have a killing me back, but my earpiece went out right at the beginning of the show. So.
Oh. Yeah, no.
You saw me leaning down a couple of times. I was trying to fix it, but it.
All right, so I'll be back in 50 minutes for the cast.
Sounds good.
Bye, guys. Bye, chat room.
Bye.
Bye, Patrick. Dark Redeemer wins the title because it was the title I came up with without knowing he had already submitted it.
Ah, pretty funny.
Blind.
I've actually never watched that movie the entire way through.
It's a mod world. I haven't watched it. I don't know if I've watched it all at once. I think I've seen it all, but I saw it in pieces, I think.
I've only seen it on TV, and so I only catch the middle of it.
No idea what happened here. Did you guys stop talking, or can I not hear you?
No, I was just reading Twitter.
While I'm levelating, I'm going to troubleshoot this.
Levelate, troubleshoot.
Oh yeah, no, it's the earpiece. It's the earpiece.
Oh no.
Headphones work fine. Oh, they're. It might have gotten loose. This thing's old. This thing predates Daily Tech News Show. They're not meant to last that long, really.
So can we talk Supercast while you're troubleshooting, or will you not be able to hear it?
Probably not a great idea.
All right, never mind.
Because I'm also editing the show and troubleshooting.
Then let's not do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of the wires shorted.
A little wire fell out.
Because I can still hear, but it's not at the level that it's supposed to be. And I've got the in-room speakers, so that's why I was able to still hear and stuff. But.
Did you try just shaking it a little?
Oh yeah, I tried all of that.
Yeah.
It's old. This thing's probably 2 years old.
All right.
And goes through some regular abuse. You guys don't hear yourself back, do you?
No.
I do not.
Okay, good.
Oh, BuzzFeed. Oh my god. Can't discuss the BuzzFeed article because this is a family show, but it's very funny. I guess I can put it in the chat room.
That must be it. The fixer says the wire might be clogged with tech news. Got another one.
All right, switching over to Supercast mode.
So does the Supercast have the same show notes and topics and all that?
Have you seen the
Yes.
link? It's right there. You've
No,
seen
no,
it?
but
I don't know. We've never done one before.
like, I mean, does it go into the same
No,
WordPress?
different day. Like different. It'll be a separate WordPress post, for sure. So, and I don't know how I put all these links in. I don't know how many links will get referenced. This is me sort of shooting in the dark. So I don't know. I think this would be a invent it as you hear it thing. What else?
Oh, I need to get something to drink. I'll be back.
Yeah. All right.
I need a drink.
I need a drink. Today has been an I need a drink day. Let me know when you're done editing. So I can ask you the
will.
question that's on my mind, burning a hole in my mind.
Oh no, that sounds like a stroke.
It's
not good.
definitely not that.
I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in. Okay.
It's raining in my brain.
Insane in the rain now. Insane in the brain. Uploading to archive.org. You could shoot your question at me now because I'm
All right.
doing more automatic stuff. If
They
you would
pause
like.
Coolio. Hold on. Sorry.
What?
I was listening to Coolio. Where should I shoot it? In Slack or in the doc?
Oh, I thought you were just going to tell me.
Oh, I could tell you the question. Our first contributor in the Supercast does not yet have a topic.
That's fine. He'll come up with them.
All right. Then I like it.
I
sent some Day of Air suggestions that were easily
good.
Doable.
I have every faith. And even if this is a much more laid back show than the normal DTNS.
Yeah,
so
agree.
Even if we just end up BSing about like what is it about tech that interests you?
Yeah.
Probably end up be fine.
I think that's entirely awesome. Yeah, and I think of all the topics, there will be plenty to say. So I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. For sure. I think the opposite problem.
Yeah, the shorter that first segment is, it's fine.
Huh.
Lots of topics.
And we also don't have a hard amount of time that we have to stick to.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously, there are people like Justin have to leave at a certain point. So we want to make sure we keep moving along so we have as much of them as possible. But if we run a little long or something, there's no hard and fast out.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll ask everybody. We could probably ask everybody.
A new day. Patrick and Justin has a thing. It's more
yeah,
like that.
yeah. We should ask people or let them know if you need to drop off at any point.
Yeah.
As long as you've actually had your moment
segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm very happy with what I've seen go in there.
Okay.
Did you see that somebody may have actually invented affordable transparent aluminum? Makes me so happy. Computer. Hello, computer.
Okay. I think I'm out of the post.
Okay.
Possibly. I have to hold on. Let me check something. It's quite possible that I'm out of the post.
Okay.
There's every reason to believe that I'm out of the post.
All right.
I just screwed it up. Went back into the post. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, now I'm totally out of the post. But did I do it right? Did I screw anything up? Okay, good. I did not. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for now. But once again, the Supercast is coming up in 40 minutes, or if you're watching this later, is somewhere else in your playlist or your feed. Talk to you soon.